The Elijah letter. Just what is this letter? Who did he write it to? It's the only preserved written prophecy of Elijah that wasn't spoken. Its structure is a legal document. It indicts. It has three major factors. It has authority, it charges, and there's a sentence. Let's start with 2 Kings chapter 2. We're going to rewind a little. This is when Elijah is handing the mantle to Elisha. And we'll begin in verse 1. And it came to pass when the Lord was about to take Elijah. Now, many read that, and it says up into heaven, so they assume that he penetrated through the door and entered an incorruptible state. But this is absolutely far from the truth, because the word heaven there, the Hebrew, has three stages of heaven. And the first stage is sky, and we find that in a few verses. One of them is Genesis 1:20. I quote, "Let birds fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." Now, did the eagles penetrate through the door and enter God's realm? No, but you have heaven here, and it says firmament. So there's different stages of the firmament as well, because the second heaven is like his throne. It's the star zone. And I have a quote here in Genesis. It says, "And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven," the same Hebrew word, but now it's above where the birds fly, "to divide the day from the night." Then the third heaven is God's realm. This is not where Elijah went. It's not where Enoch was taken to. And that's impossible. We'll find out that. The quote I have to prove the third heaven is in 2 Corinthians 12:2. Apostle Paul wrote, "I know a man in Christ who was caught up to the third heaven." And that was all a vision. Ezekiel 1, a vision. In fact, a few chapters before this, we have Micaiah, the prophet. He was taken up in vision, where he saw the angels standing before God and demons. It's all a vision. They cannot go up there. And I really want to make this point because very few know this about John chapter 3. Let's go there. Now, the Apostle John was in the island of Patmos. He wrote the gospel. That's when he did Revelation, but he wrote the Gospel of John roughly around 90 AD. So this is it's decades after Jesus died. So when you read in John 3, let's read verse 3. He's talking to Nicodemus. Jesus answered and said to him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless anyone is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." That means past the door, seeing the incorruptible, and you can't do it. And he didn't understand this, Nicodemus. That's why John in his epistle says one has to be begotten in the womb. Interesting. So we're in a matrix now. There's two heavens here, and we're in a firmament, just like the embryo is floating in fluids. Now that's interesting. Now he didn't understand this. So when John was transcribing this, he then, in verse 13, this is not the red letters. Jesus didn't say this particular verse. John added this because false doctrines were coming, yes, that you can be born again now. And what that is, it's a bribe that you're now in heaven here and you can do whatever you want. And what it is in verse 13, John wrote, "And no one has ascended into heaven." No one. He knew that except he, Jesus, who came down from heaven, even the Son of Man who is in heaven. That's why it's in brackets. So it's added. And we know David's sepulchre is with us. We know that we keep the three harvests. Jesus is the only one to penetrate through that door. It says in John chapter 1, he's the only one begotten. Now, we're all begotten here in this congregation. But none of us is born into the system, which John says, the only begotten that sits with the Father. Let's go back to the sermon, the Elijah letter, because the Elijah letter also proves he didn't penetrate through the door and enter God's realm. And we're going to see this because he writes it roughly 5 years after this event in which we are reading. So let's go back to 2 Kings chapter 2 and verse 1. And it came to pass when the Lord was about to take Elijah into the heaven, that's a transport, transporting him to another city by a whirlwind. And we'll learn a little bit more about this whirlwind. Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. And it's the northern kingdom here. Elijah preached to the northern kings. Now, let's pick it up here in verse 8. And Elijah took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the waters. Now, that's the Jordan River. It already parted once with Joshua when they came into the promised land. And they were divided to the one side and to the other side, so that both of them crossed over on dry ground. And it came to pass when they had gone over, Elijah said to Elisha, "Ask what I shall do for you before I'm taken away from you." It's a wish, an opportunity. Elijah has access to God's ear. Just as Solomon received a wish, Elisha was asked if he wants a wish. James 4:3, you ask and you do not receive because you ask with evil motives. See, what was Elisha's motive? It was kingdom business. And that's what Solomon's was. So when it's kingdom business, you're humble. And Elijah going to write a letter to someone that exalted himself to do his own business. Now, this sermon's all a warning for all of us. We get this choice to do God's business or your own. You don't want that letter written to you. Let's continue. And Elisha said, "Please let a double portion of your spirit," that's the Spirit of God, "be upon me." Let's continue. And he said, "You have asked a hard thing, but if you see me taken from you, it shall be to you. But if not, it shall not be to you." Now, verse 11. Then it came to pass as they went on and talked, behold, wonder what that conversation was. They talked. Behold, a chariot of fire and horses of fire came. Now, that's the whirlwind. It has fire in it. A chariot. Chariots are pulled by horses. And they separated between them both. And Elijah went up in a tempest into heaven. Now that was into the sky where the birdies fly. And then transported to another area where they couldn't find him, where later he writes his letter. Now, when you read this, I'm going to quote Psalm 18:10, because Jesus, when he enters through the door into our matrix, he doesn't have to go down the ladder where you see angels going to and fro. Jacob's Psalm. When you know what he does, he rides his cherub, the one that will be given to you, white horses. And I quote, "And he rode upon a cherub and flew," yes, he soared upon the wings of the wind. You can read Ezekiel 1. He has a throne that can be portable. He can go down into the matrix. He can land and become Melchizedek. He can land and wrestle Jacob. This is how our God travels. And this is what picked up. He's a chauffeur for Elijah. Isn't that completely awesome? Now, Isaiah 66:15, I'll just quote it. "For behold, the Lord will come with fire," that's on trumpets, "and with his chariots like a whirlwind." So remember Elisha saw a Syrian army, but Gehazi, his servant, couldn't see? Then, Lord, please open his eyes so he can see the invisible. And what did he see? Chariots of fire. These cherubs, it's the same one that picked him up. But he didn't need to bring the whole crew, okay? That was for an army and so forth. Now, God still had one last work for Elijah in the future, and it's about 5 years later from this moment, called the Elijah letter. And we're going to find out about it. Let's go to 2 Chronicles 21 and verse 1. And Jehoshaphat, he was a good king, and his son, we're going to read about, slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David and Jehoram. Remember that name. This is who is written Elijah's letter. Now, his name means God exalted. And that's what his name and how he should live. But he didn't. His son reigned in his place, Jehoram, and he had brothers. Now, these are the ones he grew up with around the dinner table, pass me the food and so forth. The sons are the matzah, pass me the matzah. And the sons of Jehoshaphat, Azariah and Jethiel and Zechariah and Azariah and Michael and Shephatiah. All these were the sons of Jehoshaphat. Here, catch it, brother, catch it. Yeah, 10-year-old. They're all bonded together. They're the brothers, right? Listen up. And their father gave them great gifts of silver. So they're older now. They're like 18. They're grown. They're taught the ways of princes. Okay? And gold and precious things along with fortified cities. How about that gift on your 18th when you turn 18? Wow. And Judah, but the kingdom he gave to Jehoram because he was the firstborn. And then he died, Jehoshaphat. He waited for it. And when Jehoram had risen up to the kingdom to his father, notice, he made himself strong. This is something we don't want to do. You allow God to make you strong. Elisha says, I want a double portion of what he has. Get it? And killed all his brothers. That was a power move. Many wicked kings of the past have done this. It's nothing new. With the sword, shows you how he did it. And also many of the officials, that's the right translation, of Israel. Now, those are officials that supported any of his brothers. He kept his own officials, of course, as you're going to see later. Now, Jehoram represents the beast. He's married to Athaliah. Now, Athaliah is the daughter of wicked Ahab and Jezebel. And I'm going to read Revelation 13:7. It was given to the beast to make war with the saints. These brothers represented saints. He was anointed king with the Spirit of God. And to overcome them, he did what the beast is going to do. Interesting, huh? Judas Iscariot is called the son of perdition. The beast is called the son of perdition. Is the beast at one time in the church? Judas Iscariot was. So here's an example of a type killing his own brothers with the spirit of Jezebel. Not good, brethren. Let's read verse 5. And Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. That's the contract he got with the devil. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, like the house of Ahab. This is the first Judah king that this is mentioned. He walked like them. Every king of the north was evil. Every one. What do they call it in the New Testament? The Antichrist. The king of the north, it's referenced in Daniel. These are kings of the north, are all evil. For he had a daughter of Ahab for a wife. That's Athaliah. And he did that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord. Nevertheless, the Lord was not willing to destroy the house of David because of the covenant that he had made with David, as he promised to give a light. That's Jesus. That's who came out of that line. a light, to him and to his sons forever. Now, Jehoram got 8 years because of that promise. God could have struck him dead like his brother to come, which he only his son only lasts 1 year coming. So I'll give you a quote from Proverbs 10:27. The fear of the Lord, David feared the Lord, prolongs days, but the years of the wicked, here we have 8, shall be shortened. We don't want to fall backwards, brethren. Now, I read verse 7. Let's go down to verse 11. Moreover, he made high places in the mountains of Judah and caused the people of Jerusalem to commit fornication. This is later where kings like Hezekiah had to tear down. This was built here. Jehoshaphat didn't do this. And these are sex areas. Jezebel type of things. And led Judah astray. Now, in Revelation 2:20, Jezebel's mentioned to the church of Thyatira. That's the 4th candlestick. So the Old Testament has 7 candlesticks. That's the first bread loaf on the day of Pentecost offered of the first fruits. Then when Jesus came, then it started Ephesus with Paul, and they have Thyatira. That was all the way from like the 11th century to the 16th century. They went through the Inquisition. Many saints had their heads cut off. Okay, but back here, this 4th candlestick in Thyatira, it's written, I quote, in Revelation 2:20, I have a few things against you. This is to this house of Jehoram, because you allow the woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants into committing fornication. This is not good. This king Jehoram, he was being influenced by his mother. Even though he had a wife, Athaliah, it was all puppet strings. It was the spirit of Jezebel, all to infiltrate and to destroy Judah. Now, what does the king of the north do? Satan goes inside him, like Jezebel rides the beast and goes to where? The king of the south goes to Judah and goes into the temple and declares himself as God. Is that self-motivating? Yes, just like Jehoram. So this is a big connection, and you have to open your eyes. In Proverbs 17:11, it says, an evil one seeks only rebellion, Jehoram. Therefore, a cruel messenger shall be sent against him. Here we go, the sermon. Boom! The Elijah letter. Right here. This is, to him, the evil messenger. Now, we know he's good, but in his eyes, he doesn't like what's going to be written in this letter. So, with that said, let's now read what Elijah wrote. Verse 12. And a letter came to him from Elijah the prophet, saying, thus says the Lord God of David, your father, because you have not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat, your father, nor in the ways of Asa, king of Judah. Now, if it was written to you, you got to parallel it. It would be, if you walk backwards, it would be because you haven't walked in the way of Jesus. And that's in Colossians 2:6. I'm going to read verse 13, but have walked in the way, remember Jesus is the way of who? Of the kings of Israel. That's the Antichrist. That's the beast, all influenced by Baalism. And have made Judah and the people of Jerusalem, that's the saints. I have an epiphany that when you read the whole Old Testament, Judah represents the church, the northern kingdom, all evil. They're supposed to be the church, but they're the counterfeit. Now reread all of it again like that. The beast is coming, and he's coming from the north, and he has 10 toes, 10 kingdoms, 10 toes, really 10 brothers. Yeah, it's all connected. To go a whoring like the whoredoms of the house of Ahab. and have also killed your brothers of your father's house who were better than you. Wow, I thought about who are better than you. Now, what he should have done was Philippians 2:3. It says here, let nothing be done through contention or vainglory. He did that, right? But in humility, let each esteem the others above himself. I actually found the verse I've been looking for years. I always thought, wait a second here. Why kill all those brothers? Let's play the opposite. And they get an invitation. What's this? They go to the palace. And he sits them right around him and he takes all the officials and he makes them known. These are the ones. These are the princes. You're going to listen to them and we're going to pray to God and we're going to ask for his blessing. And wherever they go out, they get strength. They represent you on the throne. It's the complete opposite. When you uplift others, they will uplift you. And this is how it's going to be in the kingdom. We're the princes around God's table that we get invited to. And Jehoram didn't want to do it just like Satan in all 1/3 that he took with his tail. It all comes down to serving God or not. Are you going to obey his voice or not? Now, if you don't do it, you're going to end up at like what's going to happen at the end of the sermon. So listen up. This is in here as a warning to the saints. I'm going to read a quote in 1 Kings 21:25. Listen up, brethren. He was influenced by the spirit of Jezebel. Okay, here we go. But there was none like Ahab who sold himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord. Okay, this happened before. Remember, Ahab already just died. His father-in-law got shot with an arrow, whom Jezebel, his wife, stirred up. That's the spirit of Jezebel. Why does it say that the woman rode the beast? Because Ahab represents the beast, the king of the north, and this woman steered him up. Go right. Okay, yes, I will. And just who's wearing the pants in this family? It's Jezebel. Now, we don't want to do that. We're the proverb virtuous woman that lets Jesus Christ be head. And that's important. Now, I want to read another quote here. That it's in 1 Kings 21:8. Jezebel herself used letters. She used letters to kill. It says she wrote letters in Ahab's name. Ahab didn't know about it to get the vineyard, Naboth's vineyard. She wrote letters, so you don't think that she would write a letter to my dear Athaliah, my princess that sits in the throne of Judah, right? She's the one influencing. Now, someone will say, you're going too far, Randy. Well, I have actual proof this happened. You ready for this? Let's go to Mark chapter 6, verse 17. We begin. For Herod himself had sent and arrested John, that's the Baptist, and had him bound in prison because of Herodias, the wife of Philip, his brother, whom he had married. Shouldn't have done that. For John had said to Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. And Herodias held it against John and desired to kill him, but was not able. Because Herod feared John, realizing that he was a righteous and holy man, and kept him safe. And after hearing him, he did many things, and he listened to him gladly. But an opportunity, this day came, when Herod prepared a banquet. Notice when? On his me day, his vain day, for his principal men, and for the chief captains to come to his day to uplift him, and the important men of Galilee, and the daughter of Herodias, remember who the daughter is over here, Athaliah, herself came in and danced. Now picture Athaliah dancing, and it pleased Herod and those sitting with him at the banquet. And the king said to the young woman, ask me whatever you desire, and I will give it to you. Then he swore to her, whatever you ask of me, I will give to you, up to half the kingdom. And after going out, she said to her mother, see, that's the Jezebel, the mother, what shall I ask? You know, Athaliah writing, Mom, Jesse, please help me. Mama, what should I do here? Jehoram, what shall I ask? And she said, the head of John the Baptist. This was all planned by Jezebel, the spirit to get into Judah. Look at that. So we know what happened. It was John the Baptist's head on a plate. So here you have a mother using the daughter to get to John the Baptist. It's the same thing that was happening over in Judah land. Okay, so let's go back to 2 Chronicles 21. Get up here in verse 14. Behold, the Lord will strike your people, this is the letter still, will strike your people with a great plague, and your sons and your wives and all your goods. Imagine him reading this letter. This is not good. And you shall have great sickness by disease in your bowels. Ouchie. Until your bowels fall out because of the sickness day by day. Now the letter ends. That's the last thing he reads. Imagine this gulp. Now, when you think about this, you have in Acts 1:18, the other type of man of sin, that's the one Satan went into. What was his last thing mentioned? Suicide. And his bowels came out. His bowels came out. The exact same thing. One was a disease, we understand that. But both had their bowels. That's the end result. Okay, it reminds me of a verse that we read in Proverbs 10:7. The memory of the righteous is blessed. That's like a Jehoshaphat. But the name of the wicked shall rot. His name means exalted of the Lord. But he did everything but that. He exalted himself, and then it stunk. His name stunk. Okay? If you want to go backwards to your name that you came out of, your old man that actually stinks, do you see your old man like that? If you don't, you're caught up in your own righteousness, like a Jehoram. Right? What did it say? Our righteousness is filthy rags. It gives you a little more understanding about that verse now, right? That hard verse to understand. Okay? So Ahab, Jehoram, if you met these ones and you didn't know, it would be like seeing just like an outstanding person in the eyes of the world. I'm convinced. Our righteousness has to exceed the Pharisees. Don't be fooled by people that die and they seem so righteous and they're worshiping Baal. Don't be influenced by them and seek and follow Jesus Christ, who kept the holy Sabbath and he had vision for the kingdom. That's what you got to do. The man of sin is being prepped right now in America with this northern kingdom, this Babylon the Great, the golden age. It's upon us, brethren. We don't want to be like a Jehoram. Let's go to verse 19. And it came to pass that in the process of time, imagine this, these years of just, oh, my stomach hurts. Athaliah, give me some drink, please. Of time at the end of 2 years, his bowels fell out because of his sickness. There's your man of sin, Athaliah. Look at this. And he died of painful diseases, and the people made no burning for him, none like the burning of his fathers. And you can look it up. King Asa, I'll quote, sweet odors and different kinds of spices were at his funeral, prepared by the perfumer's art, and they made a very great burning for him. Oh, it smells so good at this funeral. Not his, brethren. Verse 20, he was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he did 8 years. So he died at 40, and he reigned for 8 years and departed without being desired. I was looking at that. I kept going, without being desired? What's the verse that we can use? I found it. This is John 17:24 says, Father, I desire that those whom you have given me, these are the first fruits, his bride, may also be with me where I am. I desire, he said that. I desire my bride. That's Jesus Christ desiring you, not a Jehoram, but a Jehoshaphat, an Asa, a King David. That's who he wants. What are you going to do, brethren? Are you going to listen to this warning? It also says in Revelation 14, the 144,000, the bride, follow him wherever he goes. You know, the ones that he desires, they follow him. And it says they're virgins. They're not influenced by Jezebel's spirit. A little taste here, a little delight sample here. That's Jehoram. That's in the Bible of those that scorn the Spirit. And that is a lesson from King Jehoram. So my last 3 sermons now. If you go back to 3, it was the lessons from King Asa. It was then sermon 2, lessons from King Jehoshaphat. Now it's lessons, from King Jehoram, who was given what? Elijah's letter.